Bam, bam, boom, pow, wow. We're back with another build guide for Grand Cathay this time. As I take a sip of water. Let's begin. So there's two parts to these build guides. First part is a little more timeless. It should last for all ages. I'll just talk about what each unit on the roster is supposed to do, what function it's supposed to serve, and where it can be good, whether or not it's currently good on this patch. Then we'll go in the second part and talk about some good builds for this patch. Ready, let's go. Patch 6.1. What do we got? For Grand Cathay, we have the triple dragon siblings. Easiest to just start with them. They are all hybrid casters. Miao Ying is a mix of Lore of Life and Yin. Zhao Ming is Yang and Metal. And then Yenbo is some Yin. Yeah, some Yin, some Lore of Light, some Lore of Heaven, so he's a more weird one. Yenbo is your sniping lord. He has nets that can help you net something in place and shoot the crap out of it to snipe it out. He has Shem's Burning Gaze for a bit more single entity sniping. He does have Comet and Talons of Night, I guess, to clear out mass amounts of infantry, but the rest of his kit lends it more to sniping. He has the Emperor's Executioner, which is amazing at killing a lord or hero that you need to absolutely get rid of. And then his Dragon's Fang also applies Executioner. So he is all about sniping out and murdering things, more specifically single entities. He himself is very expensive, and he's not actually the best duelist, so you do have to be a little careful with that. He's more about finishing things off than getting them that low himself. Miao Ying is your healing support lord. She can heal more elite units. If you ever want to go with an elite Grand Cathay build, you could bring Earthblood and Regrowth on her and be fine. She also has Talons of Night to clear out infantry if she needs to. She herself is a decent duelist, not incredible, but not terrible either. Just a little more supportive than Yenbo was. And then you have Zhao Ming, the most aggressive of the three. He has a lot of damage spells, Dragon's Breath, Final Transmutation, Constellation of the Dragon. So he's better at clearing out things or destroying blobs. He actually is pretty good versus blobs. And he has some tankiness and some self-healing through his burning Vambraces. So he is more tanky and blob disrupting, while Miao Ying is a little more supportive, and Yenbo is killing single entities. So all the dragon siblings have a purpose. Dragonblooded Shugen Lord is your relatively cheap caster. Now, she isn't actually that cheap, but she's also a hybrid melee combatant no matter what mount she's on. So you are paying for those melee stats. Lore of Yin and Yang are the only two you can grab. Yin is a little more debuff focused and some armor piercing. Yang is a little more buff focused and killing off chaff units. Both of them have very good Winds of Magic regeneration items and abilities that can help them get a lot of spells out quickly. You can have a Flying Mount and a Jade Longman that does give okay melee stats. They are the cheapest caster lord you're going to get for Grand Cathay, but that doesn't mean they're cheap. Grand Cathay's lords are all a little expensive. Except for the Celestial General, a melee lord that can get very cheap for the stats he brings. He is a good frontline commander. He has some buffs for your allies, Lord of Grand Cathay and Brass Cleaver being two very good buffs. And then he has Celestial Sweep to clear out anything that clumps up around him. He's not an amazing duelist, but he gets the job done technically, and he can bring a Celestial Lion for a big leadership debuff when anybody is nearby him. Fearsome Roar, removing psychology and lowering leadership is quite nice. So there's your generic melee lord. For your generic buff lord, the Lord Magistrate actually does have a lot of really sick buffs, and he can even have a Sky Lantern just be up in the sky and safe and sound. You can have Inspired Marksmanship to buff ranged units, Inspired Assault to buff assault units, and Inspired Defense to buff your defensive units. Then he has a Mortis Engine that only works on flying units, and a weird shield that gives him like armor and missile block chance if he's not moving, which is a bit odd. But yeah, this is your supportive lord, and he can be very, very cheap, as we see. You could put him on foot with Inspired Assault and Defense and nothing else for 600 gold. He is a pitifully bad combatant, though, and very squishy, so he's just a support guy. For your heroes, you have two caster variants, Lore of Heaven's caster in the Astromancer, and a Lore of Metal caster in the Alchemist. Alchemist has some one-time use potion buffs that can be quite nice, while the Astromancer has more slow and meaningful caster buffs. Spell resistance, melee defense, and power recharge are all good for a caster. And he can also sit on a Wujing War Compass, which gives him some more free spells and spell mastery. Or mastery the elemental winds or whatever. So that's neat. Good for him. Those are your 2 caster heroes in case your lord doesn't have any spell casting of their own. And for your non-caster heroes, Zaytang the Watcher is very specific to Grand Cathay. He is a gigantic stone guardian, pretty much just a bone giant made into a hero. Magic damage ammunition that is very hard to miss with and does a ton of damage. Great at sniping out single entities and artillery pieces. Terrible at killing cavalry and infantry. Other than that, he has some decent buff spells and all this other crap, but his high price point means you pretty much need your opponent to be going heavily single entity focused for Zaytang to be worth it. Then we have Gotrek and Felix. Gotrek and Felix are on other rosters, but if you need a foot hero hammer squad, Felix can heal Gotrek. Gotrek can kill a bunch of stuff, and they're great at that. They are on other rosters, so I am going to just kind of skip past them, but you know how Gotrek and Felix work by now. And then you have the Gate Master of Grand Cathay. Buffs for nearby allies. That's kind of cool. And he himself is a 360 shooting little poke hero. So he's kind of like the Empire Engineer in that aspect. You can grab 2 of them on horses and just run around slowly poking down large, expensive monsters. They can be decent at that. Not great at clearing out infantry, not great at dueling, not great at supporting cavalry fights. On to the infantry. It is not expansive. Peasant long spears are your super cheap, anti-large, cowardly units, low armor, lower leadership than your Jade Warriors. So peasant long spears are actually quite good, but they will lose to most things that are focused on killing infantry. For Jade Warriors and Jade Warrior Halberds, these are your armored frontline with significantly higher leadership and battle harmony of Yang, which the peasant had as well. Battle harmony Yang can make these guys very hard to break through with 70 armor and decently high melee defense stats. Jade Warriors can hold much longer than your Peasant Long Spears, though they don't do much damage in return. Jade Warrior Halberds are similar, though they are less tanky than their shielded brethren. They do a little bit more damage only if something is large. If it's infantry size, their arm piercing seems neat, but with 22 melee attack, they're just not getting through anybody's melee defense. So they're defensive. Almost all of Cathay's infantry are defensive. Celestial Dragon Guard are just the more elite version of Jade Warrior Halberds. Still have armor-piercing anti-large, but lower melee attack than melee defense, and they get more melee defense by vibing next to other units. So, Celestial Dragon Guard are just elite defensive halberds. The Dune Dragons, elite defensive halberds with magic damage, higher stats, and they also have Encourage and ITP and a bit of spell resistance, making them much tankier against the things that normally take out elite infantry. Missile infantry is where we start to get some hype. The infantry of Grand Cathay aren't really great, but their missile infantry is quite solid. We have basic cheap peasant archers. These are your, bog standard archers. Low armor, low leadership, low melee stats, but they'll do damage if you allow them to just sit and shoot non-armor piercing missiles. The Regiment of Renown, the Bandits of the Silver Road, have fire damage, and they imbue flammable weakness to fire, so they give themselves a 20% damage buff. It's very nice. They do have Woodsman, for whatever that matters. Vanguard deployment as well. Just better archers for a higher price point. Speaking of other archers, we have Jade Warrior Crossbowmen, armored archers, and you can have Jade Warrior Crossbows with shields, more melee defense and shields. It's always pretty hype. But 70 armor can keep these guys relatively safe in an archer versus archer duel, and at 600 gold, they're not exactly expensive. So they'll beat most other regular archers and can hold back like zombies and whatnot that are fighting them in melee. But 16 melee attack and melee defense makes them very vulnerable to cavalry despite their 70 armor. Moving over to the Iron Hail Gunners and the Nangao Grenadiers. These are both Nangao type units. Iron Hail Gunners have insane shotgun DPS, amazing versus large monsters or flying units or cavalry they catch out in the open or infantry they get a side shot on or something. But very low firing line and low range means they can't do much damage against infantry just running straight at their own front line because they'll get obstructed. And very low melee stats, low armor, low HP means they'll get taken out by dogs very quickly. But at only 500 gold, they are kind of good fire and forget units. Just like, if you get 1 or 2 volleys off on a high value target, you definitely paid for yourself, so good job. Nangao Grenadiers are relatively new. They have a single use supportive AoE debuff, minus melee attack and melee defense for anybody within range of that. and then their basic ammunition is fire damage, which reduces healing, and they have a ton of ammo, but their missile strength is crazy low, so they don't actually do that much damage. This is a very supportive unit. Fire damage reduces healing, knocking people around, and using that Heaven's Flash well are most of what you'll get out of them. Raw damage, not as much. For more of your raw damage, we have your two elite versions of range units. Crane gunners are insanely long-range sniper rifle units, good at penetrating through infantry and knocking out elite infantry, killing enemy artillery, or poking down enemy single entities. They are okay against cavalry and okay against other types of infantry. Not as great at that, but better at killing elite things. And then you have Celestial Dragon crossbows and the Grace of Ki-Yin ROR. Both of these are armor-piercing dual-shot crossbows, which can do a lot of damage very, very quickly with high range and accuracy. Decent melee stats at pushing back dogs, and not for that high of a price point. 1,050 gold is pretty good for Celestial Dragon crossbows, honestly. They are quite nice. The Grace of Ki-Yin are even better with magic damage, fire damage, armor-piercing missiles. They have a bit more missile strength than their compatriots, a bit more range as well, but also the Mark of Yin is pretty huge. Lowering the enemy armor and missile block chance and missile resistance just makes them pin cushions for all your other range units as well. Grace of Ki-Yin are very strong. Your Cavalry and Chariots, like your melee infantry, is a very limited part of the roster. We have 3 units. Peasant Horsemen, terrible light cavalry with really bad stats. They're just good at running down stuff that's already routing. You have Jade Lancers, heavy cav with decent stats at a low price point, good blockers to stop things from getting onto your range units and holding for a little bit. And then you have your Longbow Riders, higher stats, but they're flying cavalry, so if flying cavalry is still bad on the patch you're on, then these guys are pretty bad. Currently, flying cavalry is not having a good day, but they can help defend the skies, especially if you're going with balloons for your damage. The Righteous Lances of Wei Jin have armor piercing and higher stats, and Guardian with ITP, but that is about it. Very expensive and still rather squishy, even though they have 110 armor and bronze shields. They don't feel like it at a lot of times with their low HP pool. For monsters and beasts, we start off with some more aerial superiority in the Onyx Crowman. Paired up with their Longbow Riders, these are what you need to use to keep the skies clean so that Furies or whatever can't dive onto your ranged units and that your balloons can stay safe. Onyx Crowman, high melee attack and melee defense stats with a high weapon strength and then good visibility with the Empress, but they are a kind of pseudo-demonic unit with only 15 armor and 5,000 HP, so this can lead them to demonic instability crumbling very quickly and getting knocked out of the fight entirely. They won't route and come back like harpies or something. They're one and dones. The Empress Crowmen are just Crowmen with higher stats, including leadership, which is nice, and then they have the Nangao Grenades passive. Well, it's an active, not a passive. They can drop little bombs on your enemies, higher stats, really good weapon strength and whatnot. So these guys are a bit better, but for 1,000 gold, you do have to keep them somewhat safe. You can't just dive them in and let them die. But if you take care of them, they'll do really well. For your single entities, we have a bunch. Jade Lion and Jet Lions were recently buffed to get more damage. And these guys are more useful as mobile forces for Harmony, especially getting yin and yang with the Jade Warriors and Jade Lancers. Jade Lancers have a very hard time getting their Harmony buffs unless a Jet Lion is around providing the yin. Though the yin buff doesn't actually help him that much. Reload speed is entirely wasted. He doesn't have a missile attack. He gets speed and leadership. That's really it. Has a bound spell for Missile Mirror for the Jet Lion, and then he has Disrupt. He can silence an enemy caster and just stop them from being able to cast spells all game as long as he's being a nuisance. This is a construct, so they do crumble slowly, and he has 50% spell resistance, which is nice against like Flensing Ruin or Spirit Leech or something. So he's okay. Oh, he also negates magical weapons in the area, and he gives spell resistance to a nearby ally. Cool. So they're kind of hybrid supportive damage units, kind of. Mostly supportive. Jade Lion, my bad, does magic damage instead of Disrupt, has a higher melee attack than the Jet Lion counterpart, but lower melee defense. Has a 2-use bound breath attack spell. Jade Conduit gives power recharge instead of spell resistance. He has no spell resistance at all. He does have mastery of the elemental winds, which makes some of your other spells cast more potent. Celestial Lion is probably your best monster currently. It's just an upgraded Manticore, higher stats than a Manticore in every way, causes terror, but also has Fearsome Roar, which is nice to spook low leadership factions, get them to run, even removing ITP from anybody that would try and resist your terror. Wounded Pride also gives it more stats as it gets lower. Great Moonbird is just a reskinned Phoenix for Grand Cathay. Only 40 armor though, and no way of healing itself is kind of problematic. But fire resistance, missile resistance, and a vortex spell can make it good at disrupting and shutting down other missile units or punishing blobs. High price point though makes it a little tricky on the current patch to bring. And we have 2 Terracotta Sentinels. One is a Green Guardian. Terracotta Sentinels are unbreakable giant constructs that, I mean, I guess they'll crumble when they get a little low, but high weapon strength, very, very high weapon strength. Good animations overall, very flashy animations, tanky, high HP pool. Their problems would be that they're expensive and they are gigantic, so they're very easy for all missile units to hit all the time. And then they have the cumbersome trait, like the Rogue Idol. They are very slow to turn and to strike, which can be a problem for them. The Green Guardian has a really weird little passive. He has higher stats, obviously, but then he has redirecting aura. Anybody within the aura that fires at him gets missile mirrored constantly, but the aura is very small, and certain fast bullets, if they're too close to him, the bullets will go so fast that they won't reflect in time, and they'll still hit the Green Guardian anyway. So he's currently a little jank. He doesn't work as he intends to. He's meant to just jump into a bunch of ranged units, and then if they try and fire at him, they shoot themselves, but it doesn't really work. And then the War Machines, 2 of which are flying. If you're flying War Machines, you have Sky Lantern and the Sky Junk. Both are relatively tanky, though the Sky Junk is much tankier with much tankier with higher armor, higher HP. But this is a flying sniper rifle unit, like a flying war wagon that doesn't do a ton of HP damage, but it's just a tedious thing you have to deal with, and it provides yin harmony for any yang units beneath it. Then you have the Sky Junk, which is a flying fire and rocket launcher. Good at punishing blobs, decent against infantry and cavalry, terrible against single entities and anything at far range or that's already significantly damaged. It does more damage to things with full HP. It does have a bomb it can drop, which is okay. It's very tanky. That's about it. For your artillery, you have 2 options. You have single entity killing or anti-cavalry grand cannons, and you have anti-infantry, anti-cavalry fire rain rockets. So it depends on what you're looking for out of them. Both are long range, both are very accurate, and both are very deadly, which is quite nice. The firing rocket's a little less accurate, but it'll still get good damage in for you. And then your supportive chariots. Wujing War Compass can be brought to have 2 bound spells, plus some power recharge rate, plus some mastery of the elemental wind, so it just really helps your casters out. It's good at punishing enemy blobs or elite infantry with its 2 bound spells that both deal with armored infantry quite well. And then for army buffing, you have the Zhengdu War Drum and the Jade War Drum. Zhengdu War Drum provides one of two buffs. You have to pick one. Either the defensive armor or the aggressive reload skill and melee attack. And it provides both Harmony Yin and Yang, and it provides +8 leadership, and it provides encourage, and it itself is unbreakable. And if you do the Disdain of the Dragon Emperor, it can provide AoE ITP, +8 leadership, and more leadership from encourage. I believe it's +4 or +5. This can make your army nearly unbreakable. For the Jade War Drum, it does all the same things, but you can also activate Fury of the Falling Blade, which gives more damage and magic attacks, plus cause fear, but that is instead of one of these other 2. And that is it otherwise. Harmony Amplifier +50. The other one is Harmony Amplifier +50. So, yeah. Generally, the Jade War Drum struggles to be worth it when all you're paying for is just a 3rd option, but it's not like something that can be constantly active at the same time. Let's do some quick builds, huh, friends? Dwarfs. Grand Cathay versus the Dwarfs. Zhao Ming's still pretty good versus Dwarfs because when he's in his dragon form, if you take Dragon's Breath, Slayers are going to want to run up to him and try and kill him, and he can easily just Dragon Breath down the Slayers and clear them out because their low armor won't protect them from Zhao Ming. You can honestly just take him with that and Burning Vambraces and be fine, because it's such a cheap spell that you should be able to spam it out even without Arcane Conduit. If you want to be able to punish blobs, you can go Final Transmutation, but if you want Final Trans, you probably want Arcane Conduit. You still want Dragon's Breath in case Slayers clump up on you, but this is better for punishing a Hero Hammer or a tight box though I would personally just cut them and stick with just Dragon's Breath. Alrighty, aside from that, dealing with Dwarfs, we can have basic peasant long spears just to have some infantry to block them from getting onto our ranged units, but we know none of our infantry are going to do any damage to dwarves, so it's pretty whatever. You want 4 crane gunners? Good armor-piercing shield breaking, and they're all just great versus dwarves, great versus gyrocopters, thunder barge, gyro bombers, any dwarven infantry, dwarven cannons and artillery. They're just great. Jade Lancers, similar to Empire Cavalry, are good at running down dwarves or cycle charging them as they try and approach your crane gunners, but you're just going to be kiting back with crane gunners for the most part. Thinking, do I even really need anything else? Could get some Onyx Chromen. Could, but I already have 4 crane gunners deal with gyros, so I don't really need air defense. Could do Iron Hails for further kiting. 33 speed is pretty impressive. And their high weapon strength, especially missile strength, should be fine. As long as your crane gunners and Jade Lancers focus on taking out any rangers before you have to deal with that. I'm going to get a 4th Jade Lancer, get rid of an Iron Hail Gunner, 450 gold. Cut a Peasant Long Spear. Get 2 Jade Warriors. Something like that can be fine versus them. You just want to hard kite out the dwarves, which is usually a good way of playing against them. You have no chance of beating the dwarves in melee. Your cavalry's not up to it, your infantry's not up to it, your monsters definitely aren't up to it. So you can't beat the dwarves in melee. You're going to have to kite them with your ranged units and armor-piercing missiles, or you're going to have to hard box against them and just hope you can outshoot them. If you want to go with that kind of build, just really quick, going to mock it up. Let's get 2 more Peasant Long Spears. Let's get 3 more Jade Warriors. Cut the Iron Hail Gunners. You still have 4 Crane Gunners, and you can grab like this. Could grab firing rockets. Could grab cannons and try and outshoot their cannons. With your 4 crane gunners and 2 cannons, you should be able to kill the dwarven cannons and force them to come to you. Or you can rely on your 4 crane gunners to be enough to make them come to you, and you can just spam out archers versus them. Grab your own shielded armored archers and the Jade Warrior crossbows. Something like that. Just like use Zhao Ming to cycle charge and terror out and kill slayers with his dragon breath. Then you have 10 infantry to bog down the dwarves and a bunch of range to shoot at them. It can work. It's tough, though. Dwarves are a very strong faction right now. And for the next one, let's do the Greenskins. Grand Cathay versus Greenskins. Zhao Ming is also very good against Greenskins. Very, very good, but let's mix it up just for funsies. Yanbo can be solid. Greenskins rely heavily on their lord being alive to bulwark their leadership, which is really bad. So let's go with Emperor's Executioner, Arcane Conduit, cut all these extra spells, and we'll do just net. Honestly, yeah, just net. I don't need Arcane Conduit if I'm just doing net. So now we can make him relatively cheap. You want to keep him on foot as a net caster for a little bit, and then turn him into his dragon form, dive whoever their lord is, and beat him up until you get the ability to Emperor's Executioner them. Get that debuff. Then, since you know you're going to be bullying their leadership and sniping out their lord, let's get a Celestial Lion, just for that extra, source of terror, immune to psychology removing, and -8 leadership. A couple Jade Lancers are okay, a couple Peasant Horsemen are okay to run off things that we're going to get to rout. Peasant Long Spear frontline is solid. Let's grab 4 of those and 2 Jade Warriors. So Jade Warriors will be in the front, the Peasant Long Spears will kind of form the wings of our flank. And then we can have Nangao Grenadiers for the debuff. Yeah, Boar Boy Biggins are terrible without their stats. We can grab 2 Nangao Grenadiers. Those also can clear out Savage Orcs quite nicely. Grace of Yin is really solid. Arm-piercing magic damage, all that stuff. Mark of Yin can help take out any troublesome Orc boys. Orc Bull boys. Onyx Chromen are solid at running down any Greenskins, bombing their front line, doing good damage there. Yeah, lots of solid things to do. And then we could go Peasant Archer and a 5th Peasant Long Spear. That could be quite solid. Defend the Grace of Yin, snipe out the enemy lord. You can even net him in place with Yanbo. Net him in place, then use the Mark of Yin the Mark of Yin, shoot him with the Grace of Kian. That could be really good. Unless they have a Foot Lord. Foot Lords, they won't take as much damage from that kind of thing. But if they have like Azhag on Skullmuncha, Night Goblin Great Shaman on his Spider Mount, the Night Goblin War Boss on his Squig is actually pretty easy to shoot with the Grace of Kian if you net him in place. And then with a couple good volleys, then Yunbo is usually ready to execute him, and their Lord can just get taken out instantly, which is quite nice. And then their leadership is so piss poor, you should be able to win from there. All right, that's it. Have fun with Grand Cathay.
Subscribe, yes, yes.